Hey, good evening. Welcome to the April 5th, 2022 Planning Board meeting. I am in person, but the rest of our board members are remote. So I will call roll so we know who's present. Start with Andrew.
Here.
Kate.
Here.
Linda.
Here.
And do we have anybody else? Any other board members? Don't see any other board members. 4 members, that is still a quorum, correct? That's,
There's only 4 of you.
appears so.
Kevin, do you remember for a public hearing, is it 4 out of 7 or 5 out of 7? I think it's 5 out of 7. I think it's 5 out of 7. You're muted, Kevin, but
Raise your hand, 4 or 5.
Or hold up.
Hold up fingers.
I'm pretty sure it's 5. So I'm gonna suggest that you open the public hearing for the definitive subdivision plan
Can we continue that?
and continue it to see if Haley shows up.
But can we continue that without a quorum?
Yes,
Okay.
if there's a lack of quorum, you can continue it.
Okay. And in the intro, oh, and Linda, you've got I see your hand raised, please.
Yeah, Linda Escobedo, the select board liaison to the committee. Usually quorum would be 4 of 7 unless there are some specific things to the planning board that I'm not aware of.
But I think a definitive subdivision needs 5 out of 7.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's why I was asking if there was.
And Kevin's not helping me.
Okay. Well, in the interim, what we will go ahead and do is we're going to reshuffle the schedule a little bit, and maybe we'll see if we can get one more member of the planning board here. But what we'd start out with, because it's almost an administrative matter, is the public hearing on the application of Quarry Road North LLC. So this is that in accordance with provisions of MGL Chapter 41, Section 81-T and the Town of Concord subdivision rules and regs, to review the definitive subdivision plan application of Quarry Road North LLC to create a 1-lot subdivision with access from the town of Sudbury for the Concord portion of the tract at 48Y Fitchburg Turnpike at parcel 3419. Now we have Kristen here. So, but the applicant will go ahead and take care of this item. And the applicant has requested a continuance to July 12th, 2022. I will open the public hearing. And then without any further discussion, see if the board is in favor of agreeing with the applicant's request for continuance to July 12th, 2022. So I will go around the room. First, Mr. Boardman, Andrew.
Yes.
Okay, Kate,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
and Kristen, in case you were coming in, we're just doing a continuance of the Quarry Road. Are you in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, and I am also in favor of a continuance. So our 7:45 agenda item, we've extended to July 12th, 2022. So we will then, what's the word for that? Closing the public hearing.
You're just
or
continuing.
Continuing it. Thank you.
Who moved and who seconded? I'm sorry.
Gosh, I don't know that we formally did that. I moved it.
I'll second it.
Andrew seconds it,
Okay.
and we will deem that
All in favor.
all in favor. Yeah, thank you.
Do we have to put a time on that?
Yes.
Would you like to amend and put in a time?
We'll say, how about 7:30?
Oh, for when they will have it?
Yes.
Yeah. At 7:30 p.m., can we get just a show of hands? Everybody in favor with 7:30 p.m. We're all in favor. Everybody express their.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we now have Kristen, so we have a quorum. We'll return to the 7 p.m. item. at which we will go ahead and open the public hearing for the definitives, or it's open. We are continuing it. The public hearing for the definitive subdivision plan application of AWMW LLC for the improvement of Sunnyside Lane and the creation of 4 new lots, parcels 2088, 2089, 2092, 2092-1, 2093. That's actually 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 parcels. It says creating 4 new lots.
Yes.
So there's 5 parcels that are becoming 4.
There's one existing.
I see. Okay, so the
Oh.
subdivision is those 5 parcels. They're creating 4 new lots. Okay. So with that, I think we'll turn it over to the applicant and.
Hi, for the record, I'm Mark White from AWMW. And with me tonight is Molly Opendorf from Stamstein McGarry. We're in front of you tonight to discuss a modified swale design for the Sunnyside Lane roadway, as well as the pavement width and sidewalks, once again on Sunnyside Lane. If you recall, at our previous meeting, we discussed the design that we had shown. It was incorporated a 24-inch swale, utilized driveway culverts, and had a shoulder of about 24 inches on the westerly or left-hand side as you drove in. There was some concerns with the depth of the swale, the width of the shoulder, and in speaking with some of the residents out there, they shared the same concerns. So we looked at the design and came up with an alternative where we eliminated the driveway swales. We eliminated the driveway culverts, thereby allowing us to go with a swale that was about 3 to 8 inches deep. And by eliminating the driveway swales, you get a gradual grade off of the driveways to the area drains, as opposed to a sharp drop off like you get with a culvert. With that shallower swale, it also allowed us to center the paving in the right of way, thereby allowing us to pull the paving about 3 feet off the right-hand side of the roadway as you're pulling in. And also with that shallower swale, the swale doesn't need to be as large because you don't need that, you're not making up for that 24 inches going down. So we were able to increase our shoulder from 2 feet to 5 feet on the left-hand side, thereby allowing cars to park on the edge of that roadway and allowing traffic to get by.
So does that mean the water, instead of flowing under a culvert under the driveways, will flow across the driveways? It'll be a little.
It's so the driveways will still be above the swale, probably 6 to 8 inches, but all the water coming off those driveways will shed off into the swale through the grass and into area drains.
Okay.
And then the area drains get piped down to a central catch basin. So you're still utilizing LID development.
Yeah.
So there wouldn't be no water from the road that would be flowing over the driveways. It would just be the water that's in the driveways themselves.
Okay. But so before it was, you said about this deep, now we're going about this deep.
Anywhere from 3 to 8 inches deep, correct?
Okay, so the drive, there's what, 3 drives that cross this, or 2?
I think there'll be Sue's, there'll be 4.
4. So how does the driveway cross that swale? There's a pipe underneath the driveway?
No, so what happens is when that driveway goes up, that will be about 8 inches above the area drains.
Uh-huh.
So the grade will come off of that driveway flowing toward the area drains. So the water will flow through the grass into the area drain,
I
which
see.
will go into a pipe.
I see. Okay, so this is not like what I was picturing in my mind was a little bit of like almost like a culvert or like an irrigation ditch running along the side of the road that the driveways would be going over through a
That's what we initially had.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
the original design.
So now it's a shallower swale and you've got drains on either side of the driveway, so there's not water flowing under the drives.
Well, there'd be water flowing through that pipe, which is well below the roadway, which is what we had in the
But it's a
initial design.
Closed culvert
So it's-
system though.
Yeah, okay. So it seems like a good change to me. I was a little concerned with the passing that somebody, a truck or
Mhm.
somebody, maybe when it's plowed and that swale is kind of hidden under the snow, depending on where the plow went,
Right.
somebody's gonna drop a wheel, but that doesn't sound like it's an issue now with a shallow.
It's shallow and you also have a 5-foot shoulder as
Okay,
opposed to the 2.
right. Okay,
and still gets the water where it needs to be. So still serves the same purpose.
Thank you for marking out the lines. I did go out there and look, and probably made people nervous driving slowly up and down Sioux Street. And I will say, yeah, it feels like it will be narrow, but that narrow could be appropriate there if you want it to feel like a small lane that the cars would be going quite slowly down. One thing that immediately jumped out to me is, and I hadn't seen a discussion of this, is there a requirement from CMLP or otherwise of the plan, since you're putting in their new road surface, about undergrounding the utilities on that street, the overhead utilities?
We're gonna start at the pole that's adjacent to 30 and 42 and go underground from there.
So that's essentially where your lots, the new lot start. Okay. So that leaves, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, that leaves only two or three houses on the street, because the house on the corner, when you pull in on the right, is already undergrounded.
Right.
House on the left is serviced probably off of Osbrook there. The next house down, that's, I think, your house, Sue, which is overhead. And there's a house on the right that's
It's
overhead.
Macy's,
Okay,
which is 24.
okay.
Yes.
Mine's underground. I fell for it and paid for the incremental cost to put my feet underground.
Well, I mean,
We haven't talked with CMLP yet. We submitted plans to them, but until we're through this process.
Burton, are you thinking that this would be the good time to do it? So that since we're before we pave it, it's easier
well,
to-
right, obviously, that it's why you're dealing with a completely unimproved road surface, right? Because future paving is likely going to be, I read these things on the CPW. You'd see like they do the micro grading and all that, but they rarely go below grade to put in conduit. And it seems like that would be the time to do it. And that's in line with CMLP's long-term plan, but I don't know what CMLP's requirements are. Was that for these kinds of things?
Still only service upgrades or certain things trigger it.
Yeah, I'm not, since those homes are existing with overhead, I'm not sure CMLP would make the developer go back two
Is there-
homes to because you would have to underground from the street all the way to the meter at the house.
Right. And
So
what I'm
those-
wondering,
Those private properties aren't technically part of the subdivision.
I got it. Yeah, of course. And what I'm wondering is, does CMLP ever do the undergrounding on private lanes? Because maybe they would want to do it and do their work in concert.
They will do the applicant pays to have CMLP do the work. CMLP does their own work. They will lay the pipe and the conduit.
But what I mean is, in a case like this, where he's creating a subdivision that's 2/3 of the way down the road, you have 3 existing overhead utilities. CML,
Yeah, I
I mean-
will ask, definitely.
just because the opportunity is there, because the road surface hasn't been put down and the road hasn't been improved.
Maybe they could at least get it service ready or something and lay the whatever conduit they need.
Right. Yeah,
That would
exactly.
require-
You could put the conduit in where the paved areas are.
Right.
I think you're asking the homeowners to take on a significant expense to do the underground, change the surface around.
Right. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure
But
how,
we
you know,
could, and
I was
We-
thinking
we-
more along the lines of whatever you have to do, not running the service to the homes,
Mhm.
but whatever conduit would make it easier should they decide whether it's CMLP or the homeowner to do the underground service later.
Right. We will speak with CMLP. We've got a good relationship with them. But one of the alternatives would be to put the conduit under the pavement. But if you start getting out on the edge of the right of way, without removing those poles, you really can't run all that conduit. I mean, the poles are gonna be in the way.
fair enough. I just want to make sure somebody's thought
Yep.
about it, because I'm
I'll
not
ask.
suggesting that it should be your responsibility to pay for the undergrounding for the houses that are currently overhead, or that the neighbors there should be expected to pay an expense to
We'll
underground.
explore the option.
But if CMLP says, oh, great, you're paving a street,
Mhm.
yeah, we want to put a conduit in the ground and we'll come back in 25 years and finish the job.
So didn't you speak with them about this?
Yes, but it was quite some months ago. At the time, they were feeling rather overwhelmed with projects COVID-wide. Sue Felsham, 19 Sunnyside Lane, speaking at the wrong time.
That's it. I'll follow up with CMLP engineering.
Thanks. Okay.
You're welcome.
I sort of sidetracked us there for a little bit, but that was, I believe that's the extent of the things we asked you as board to respond to. It's just the board layout. Let me ask, do any other members of the board have any follow-up questions or comments or anything else that they felt were open items from our memorandum of the last meeting? Kristen.
Not necessarily open item, but when I did go, thank you for marking. When I did go, I mean, that the new pavement is really, seems like it's going to come very close to the current houses on the right side when you go down.
He's moving those over, right?
And it's getting, there's the paint marks are on the old layout.
Okay.
So with this proposed one that we're talking about tonight, it would shift everything to the right 3 feet. approximately. Correct.
When you're driving down, okay. Okay, yeah, that'll make a big difference.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. It would be right up, it would have been right up against some of those picket fences there, but it seems like, yeah, that would be great. Anybody online? Andrew, Linda, yes, please.
I had a question with regard to the unnamed way. And I was just wondering, will it dead end into a, I was thinking that if people wish to access the trail that will be available to walk around Warner's Pond, would it be possible to have some parking available beyond the turnaround on that T so that if someone does want to park there, they don't have to take up a place by one of the houses?
I think you'd be getting into floodplain.
Well, it looks like there's some area beyond the T that's not in the 100-yard, but maybe I'm reading that wrong.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're
So-
gonna, I'm pretty sure you're gonna be into the floodplain. I've got a map here somewhere that.
That's something that we can look into further, Linda, and I can speak to natural resources about that as well.
Okay. Because I just think it would be, again, if there are people trying to access those sites, then it would be best not to have them on a road that is already very narrow in terms of any two-way traffic. You know, if they're parking for an extended period of time.
Great.
Okay, so procedurally where we are, if you're still going back and getting more information, and based upon the memo we've got, is it not their expectation that we have a decision tonight that we've still got to draw up that?
No, procedurally, the applicant will submit the complete revised drawings and revised stormwater calcs to be reviewed by engineering.
Okay, so that still needs to be signed off on.
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to note, we've received a few letters, and I believe most of the letters are saying go with 18 feet. At least this most recent one we received from Nancy Sokol. If there's no further comments from the board, I think it would make sense to see if there's any public comment or anybody in the room.
I have a little question, Sue Felsham, 19 Sunnyside Lane, which is with the new shallow modified swale with snow plowing. Things are going to be different because right now snow plowing tears up the street and pushes gravel across my driveway, and it'll be paved now. But when I get a private plow to come, since the swale will be, have the appearance of being outside of the public street, since it'll be unpaved, will it get chewed up, I wonder, by plowing. I don't know if that's an issue or not. Oh, and a second question, which is, if I understood the presentation correctly, driveways will be above the level of the swale. And if my driveway is 4 inches lower, revealing the old paved driveway, I'm curious whether that's a possibility, or if I wanted to have my paved driveway back, if I would have to put more pavement on top of the pavement.
We blend into your existing grades. So the swale by your driveway will probably be down about 15 feet off, would be down about 8 inches. So even if your driveway was level with the road or slightly pitched from the road, it would flow in
Even if
to
it's
those
below.
area drains.
Yeah.
Then we have 11 feet to feather into your existing grades. The grades that are there today.
And snow plowing isn't gonna muck up.
If you put stakes up for the snowplow, they would know where to plow.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If I may, my name is Rich Holworth. I'm the resident of 30 Sunnyside Lane. And I guess full disclosure, I've been a professional engineer for over 35 years, and I specialize in highway design, drainage, and private.
And you
real estate.
submitted your green card to the planning board, right?
And private real estate. I wish I could have, well, ironically, I have another hearing that I have to leave for shortly, so I'm going to try to be brief, but I just wanted to thank, the board for their thorough consideration of this petition, and thank Mark and his team. They've really been wonderful to work with. Molly, Mark, everybody's been fantastic, cooperative, listening to all of our concerns, and either legitimizing them or in case we're wrong, letting us know why. But I'm wholly supportive of the narrower concept of the roadway width. I think it's consistent with all the standards practice that's out there today, as a way to try to, as effectively a traffic calming measure. And with the increased traffic on the roadway, albeit not a lot, we're doubling the number of houses effectively on the street. It's only about 10. I think most of the neighbors there are very courteous now, and I expect they'll continue to be in the future as well. But I'm wholly in favor of the narrower roadway. I think the design solution that they've come up with from a stormwater management perspective is very sound. I think that they've, given ample consideration to try to incorporate LID features. I think the swale will be effective. I think the progression of the design has gotten better as it's gone along. So I just wanted to mention that very supportive. I think the thing that I'm probably most passionate about is the width of the roadway, because I think that anything in excess of that would be detrimental. It would probably induce higher speeds, and it would increase the amount of impervious area next to a natural resource that we are desperately trying to protect right now, and if not, make a substantial investment in to try to clean it up. So I don't know if that, and I did also inquire with my neighbor relative to the undergrounding of electrical lines, and Randy Shelley, who's on the corner, he mentioned to me that I think he received some sort of like a 50% reduction or contribution from CMLP to be able to underground his line. I underground mine in 2001 in the hopeful, anticipation of it coming down the road. So I don't know if they still offer that program or anything else, but I'm happy to look into it as well.
Okay, that's very, very good.
It also captured about access to the pond.
Oh, yeah. No, I think we covered that. though.
Yeah.
I mean, the trail access to the pond has been great. I walk down there, since I'm home for COVID. I walk down there almost every day, and it's a wonderful opportunity for the neighborhood. I've seen a lot more foot traffic down there with the construction now, and I think people's eyes are opening to the fact that there's this precious resource at the end of our street that the town also owns, 2 lots off of the Unnamed Way and Sunnyside Lane. So it's a great opportunity. It really is. And it's a beautiful spot. And like I said, Mark and his team are doing a fantastic job. So we couldn't be happier with at least the purchaser of the land.
That's great. I was going to ask you one follow-up question that slipped my mind. It will come back to me. But thanks very much for that
And
feedback.
I apologize if I duck out in the middle of your conversation, but I do have to need to be in Wilmington in like a half an hour. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. You've got everything we need to know?
I think we have everything.
So we were still discussing the waivers.
Oh, there was one thing I was going to ask, and it was not for you. mentioned at the last planning board meeting was a street light at the end of the street, and there's not a street light down there, and there's not one for a little ways on either end. Maybe while we've got a couple neighbors here, I mean, it seems to me that it would be beneficial to have a street light. This is within walking distance of the town center. If it was a modern street light that was throwing light down, I'd be curious if people who live on that street would view that as a benefit.
We have one put up and it was removed at our request
Interesting.
because
Okay.
it shines more light in your bedroom than it does in my car has lights. So I usually rely on those.
You
When I'm
mean,
driving and walking, I don't, you know.
and this light was at
It
Lawsburg?
was right outside of actually in between the utility pole that's kind of between Sue's property, my property, and Nancy Sokol's property.
So it was on the.
Utility pole, yeah,
Okay.
In the middle of the street, basically.
yeah.
Oh,
Now, you're talking about it potentially at the end. I
At the
wouldn't
end.
probably be a big impact to me, but I imagine the future landowners might have the same concern that we had.
Mhm.
You know, it's not a heavy traffic route, and I feel like the dark sky concept to me is much more important. I like to come out and see the stars.
Mhm.
than
Yeah,
to see a street light, but that's just me. Again, one personal.
well, that's why I asked.
Right,
Value
and
that.
I mean, unless there's a safety issue that we have heard about, I would agree also, unless the residents that feel strongly about having one.
I was thinking about, people that might be walking from there and then crossing the street because they're headed towards the park. Or
Is there a
something like that.
crosswalk?
There is further down.
Yeah.
Further down.
I think
But if I would say if the current residents don't view it as necessary, turning out there or walking from there.
most of the houses, because of the wetlands, are so close to the street that the house lighting, you know, like Nancy's house has a light on the garage, and when I walk by, it goes on,
Mhm.
and it lights the roadway enough.
But again, I don't mean along the street. I really like the idea of not having streetlights on the
Yeah.
street, especially as you get.
Oh, you're
closer
talking
to
about down by
home.
Lost
I'm talking at the intersection of the street and Losbrook. of
Yeah, that
Sunnyside and
would
Losbrook.
be more Randy and Lenny that would be impacted by that.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last thing I'd want to get is the impact and input of would that be CMLP that's responsible?
and community safety officer.
And community
But-
safety.
But I mean, there wouldn't be anything, oh, you're saying because there's gonna be more people or that could be doing that, that would be the only reason, because otherwise, nothing is changing for the
Yeah.
residents that would say, we didn't have a street light on Losbrook and now we want one.
My thought is, there's not a street light there now. Maybe there ought to have been all along.
Okay.
Or maybe that the slight increase in traffic or patterns moving to people walking more or biking more than driving would suggest it would be helpful while we're looking at all this.
Okay.
It's a question that I think is worth asking.
I think there's one at Pond Street. right?
Didn't Len say last time that there used to be one
Somebody said that.
across the street that got knocked down in the big storm a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
It wasn't on the Sunnyside side, but it was directly
Yeah,
across the
there's a
street,
pole 10 feet one direction or the other off the end of
which
Sunnyside.
would light the intersection regardless.
Probably, yeah.
So I can check with the community safety officer
Yeah.
and CMLP to get their input.
But very helpful.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misinterpreted when you were talking about the location of it, but I think actually, you know, being a resident there, a crosswalk at Conan Street would be far more beneficial than a street light at the end of Sunnyside.
Crosswalk at Conant. Is
There's
there
no
not a
crosswalk
crosswalk
there.
there?
No, and
This
it's,
So
is
the first
everybody just
crosswalk is
stays right
what,
across
middle
there.
of the park? Is it
Yeah,
about,
which is usually don't do a mid-block crossing and
that's the second one they were trying to on
I'll
Commonwealth
ask about
Ave.
that too.
That was a comment I had on the Commonwealth Ave redevelopment, is don't put the crosswalk in the middle of the block. Okay. Thanks.
Thank
I
you.
think our open items then to be able to have a definitive memo based upon the feedback or any lack thereof from the rest of the board is just to sign off on the culvert design from the town.
Yes, and then the board would need to discuss the waiver for the width of the pavement and
Right.
no sidewalk.
Right. We would, but I don't think we're asking the applicant for any more information on that unless any board members online looking for any additional information on the width of the road and consider that they need to consider that, or on the request to not have a sidewalk on the road. And we're good. All right. So I don't think we need anything more from the applicant, and just Thank you very much.
You need to continue the public hearing.
We have a date.
Do we have a date?
You can give us direction on the paving one.
On the paving list, my sense is that people are happy with the 18 feet, yeah. And then we weren't looking for any more information, and that's what all the neighbors have asked for, so that's what, I don't see any issue there. Did anybody online go out there and look at the lines and otherwise think 18 feet would not be acceptable? Kate or Linda or Andrew? Okay,
And also the sidewalks. It was, we hadn't reached a conclusion on that at the last meeting.
yeah, I'm sorry. Having had no further comment here, I thought people would be satisfied, but it's good to go through it, so you know. Andrew, Linda, Kate, Kristen, does anybody have any further concerns or information they'd want on to consider the request to not require a sidewalk, given the information that we got last in this hearing?
No, I thought it was appropriate to not have sidewalks.
Okay. I'm of the same feeling. Driving down the street, you can imagine it's going to be one of those roads where people and cars are moving at more or less the same speed down the road. It makes some sense. But the value of not having it exceeds the value of not having it, I guess. And that's why I say I don't think we need any more information. We just need to sign off from the town department that the drainage works and the input from the safety officer on the electrical at the end. So you're looking at dates?
Yep.
Okay.
When do you think you would have everything submitted, Alex?
He's a funny guy. I
Yeah.
think last time we talked about the meeting on the May 10th. And then for that, when would
Yes,
you
May
want
10th.
materials? 2 weeks before? As soon as possible.
Not tomorrow, no matter what Mark says. May 10th. The end of next week work?
Yeah, I think we can make that work.
Okay. Yeah, or the Monday, the 16th.
Yeah, I think we can make that work.
All right, so if the board can continue the public hearing to 7 PM at May 10th?
Okay, I'll go ahead and make that motion that we continue this hearing until May 10th at 7 PM. Can I get a second for that?
Second.
Kristen's on the second, and I will go around the room. Andrew, how do you vote for
Yes.
continuing? Yes. Linda,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. Great. So the public hearing is continued. Thank you guys all very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.
You bet. We are not quite ahead of schedule, but we are awfully close to being ahead of schedule. We're going to move now to considering the recommendation that we are required to make to the ZBA regarding the applicant of Kevin Hurley for a special permit under sections 234 and 4221 and 11.6 of the zoning bylaw. It says to extend residence C zoning district by 30 feet. I think we really mean the rules applicable to residence C
Yes.
to 30 feet into residence B for a two-family dwelling at 2325 Lang Street, parcel 1284. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Hurley, who I know I see there on the.
So can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good.
Go ahead.
So good evening. My name's Kevin Hurley. I am the applicant, and at this point in time, I'm also the owner of the property. The property at 2325 Lang Street sort of has an interesting history. The front portion of the property, which is currently known as 25 Lang Street, was built in 1920 as a church. In 1955, the church doubled the size of the building, and that is the portion of the building that today is known as 23 Lang Street. In 1976, the Board of Appeals approved a special permit to convert the building from church uses to a two-family structure. And in 2005, a freestanding garage and a carport were added to the property. The lot contains 17,537 square feet. Approximately 44% of that property is zoned Residence B. The Residence B district is shown on this plan, and it runs 200 feet from the sideline of Monument Street. The Residence C portion of the property is 56% of the property and is all land to the right-hand side of the property. What we're proposing to do is to extend the regulations applicable to the Residence C district from the line Elizabeth has the arrow on 30 feet to the left, which would add an additional 5,000 square feet to that is already used for Residence C purposes. So 84% of the lot would then be classified as being permitted to be used under Residence C district regulations. One of the criteria is that we have frontage in both of the districts, and we do. We have 74 feet of frontage in the Residence C district and 33 feet of frontage in the Residence B district. The Board of Appeals, the historic districts approved the plans for this property at their meeting on March 16th. And I go before the Board of Appeals on the 14th of April to get their approval to modify the structure under the residential provisions that your board had adopted, I think it was in 2021. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for that summary, Mr. Hurley. If you could just a little bit for the benefit of the board, and I know, and I'm going to ask you this because I know you're probably more expert than any of us on this, walking us through the purpose of moving this. If I can just, I believe it's that by getting 84% of the property in, you can, well, to reconstruct this building to the extent you want, you need to become conforming. And so you'd like to take advantage of the zoning we have for Residence C that allows a two-family. And without that change, you would need to get not a special permit, but a variance from the ZBA. Is that correct?
No, there's really two different alternatives. The reason I'm trying to get the 30-foot extension is so that I can apply under the provisions of section 4221 that you had put before the town meeting, I believe in 2000, what year, Elizabeth?
I think it was 2021.
It
Yeah.
was last
2021.
September, yeah.
If we don't do that, the building was permitted as a two-family in 1976 under the first paragraph in 4221. So we could go back under the first section of 4221 if the zoning boundary line was not extended and apply for permits under that portion of 4221. But when you look at the site plan, we would have to detach the garage and leave the garage where it is, which is circled in red in the upper left-hand corner of the site.
Oh, I see.
And would have to make other modifications. What we show as a sunroom would have to become a screened porch. Also, we met with the requirements of not exceeding 20% of the volume of 20% of the gross floor area of the existing building. So we'd have to make a number of changes, and those changes would not result in a better use for either our use of the property or for the neighbors.
Okay.
The garage, for instance, today, the existing garage is set back 6 feet from the property line. The proposed garage is set back 16 feet from the proposed property line. The driveway currently comes within 2 feet of the adjacent property, right down where Elizabeth has that arrow. And for the front portion of the driveway, it'll be set back 17 feet rather than the 2 feet from the neighbors.
Right.
So I've spoken to the 5 direct abutters of this property, and all 5 of the abutters have supported this application through the historic districts, and I assume they will continue to do so before the Board of Appeals.
And thank you very much for that explanation. And it would appear from looking at your plans that the gist of this, if I could do the elevator version, is you're taking a two-family house, you're updating it into a two-family house, you're removing some outbuildings and some extensions to the building and adding on others, but the total massing is eyeballing it roughly the same or maybe even slightly smaller. Is that a fair summary?
It is, except that it is slightly bigger.
Slightly bigger, okay.
in
Well,
building.
okay.
Looks nice.
And,
It's still-
and you're bringing the style into a uniform conform style as opposed to a sort of a church building with a 1950s add-on.
We're doing very few modifications to the front portion that was built in 1920. The back portion of the building that was built in 1955 pre-existed the historic districts.
Mhm.
And the back building is really, it's highly visible from Monument Street. It's visible from Lang Street. And it's elements, I tell people it was built like a 1950s ranch. So
Mhm.
for instance, there's 6 plate glass windows. There's a very low pitched roof. And today, if you went before the historic districts, no, they would not even consider approving the back portion of the existing building. So we're trying to bring the architecture of the overall building back into the realization that the property is in the historic districts.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Let me ask the board. Does anybody have any questions about this application? I've seen none from the board online. Kristen, I'm sure you would have raised your hand. I don't have any questions myself beyond those I've already asked. I'm going to go to your planner's report. Agenda memo. Yes, thank you. I think I just had that open and now I've lost track of it. So while I'm looking for that, are there any additional issues we need to address?
Nope, the planning board is just required to make a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals on whether they feel moving the dimensional requirements for the residence C district 30 feet into the residence B district is appropriate.
Okay, and the basis on which we make that decision as to whether or not it's appropriate those are the standard things we need to take into consideration when we are essentially making a recommendation that it's
As a special permit.
as a
So,
special permit, right?
The points that Mr. Hurley made, it's reducing, allows for a reduction in encroachment into the setbacks of various structures, pavement, allows for more uniformity in the design and character. Been approved by the Historic Districts Commission. And so for those reasons, I think the board can recommend that the Board of Appeals grant the requested special permit.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. Does anybody have any concern with making that recommendation? Okay. And then what I would like to do is make a motion that we recommend to the Zoning Board of Appeals that they should approve the special permit. Well, actually, are we approving it? We're making a recommendation that they
Grant the extension of the
grant the
dimensional
extension of the
requirements.
dimensional of the residence C zoning requirements 30 feet into parcel 1284. in
The
accordance with
reasons
the
stated.
application, for the reasons
Stated tonight.
stated tonight. Thank you very
Perfect.
much.
I'll
Thank you,
second that.
Thank you, Andrew. And I'll start with you, Andrew. You vote in favor,
Yes, I vote in favor.
right? Linda,
Yes,
Kate,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So you've got your recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Appreciate it.
your assistance. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm glad it's gonna be kept a two-family.
Yeah, and yeah, the comment you may, I don't know if you just heard that it's being kept a two-family. I think that's kind of remarkable in this day and age, especially with that address. So thank you.
I happen to think that's a great location. And at some point in time, my wife and I will be living in one of those 2 units.
Excellent.
So again, thank you for your help.
You'll be able to short walk to the to Kai's Road for planning board meetings.
I wouldn't miss it.
Good night.
Good night.
We are now officially I think, ahead of schedule.
Perfect.
It's 7:49. We've already finished the 7:45 agenda item. It brings us to administrative items. We need to formally, do we actually need to formally make a recommendation on our own articles?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so maybe we should break this down. I guess we go article by article, but we've got two articles that we've got some, maybe I would go with their beyond Scrivener's errors, corrections that we're making some tweaks.
Yes.
So let me pull up that memo now.
I can bring that up. Talking about the draft.
Right, well, so, yeah, so first, we've got the scenic roads bylaw. We're not making any changes there. We need to formally decide to either make a recommendation in favor of passage or to take no action for Article 30, which is the scenic roads bylaw, which we've been sort of talking about being the co-sponsor all along. And we spoke in favor of, I think, at the at our hearing. We need to do a formal motion? So,
Move, second, and vote.
all right, I am going to make a motion that we recommend for, is it recommend for passage? What's the language?
Affirmative action
We recommend affirmative action
on Article 30.
on Article 30, the general bylaw for the scenic roads bylaw. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Kristen. I'll start with Linda.
Is there
Since
any
you,
discussion? I
Pardon?
guess we've already had this.
yeah, I feel like we've discussed this.
I think so.
But though certainly if anybody, as we go through these, has anything they want to say about any that we don't stop on, please stop me. I'll go to the vote. So Linda, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Andrew,
No.
no on the scenic roads bylaw
Affirmative action.
for affirmative action. And Kristen, did I already ask you?
No, but yes.
Could you clarify?
Okay,
Good.
You hadn't asked me.
Oh, you're a yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And Kate,
Yes.
okay.
And Burton.
And Burton is a yes. All right. So we were 4-1
4 to 1.
recommending affirmative action.
Yep.
Okay, the next item is Article 31, the additional dwelling unit. And for this, we got I think, a very good, some clarifying additional language. Kristen, did you put that together? If you did.
No, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth did.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as folks may remember, there was a comment raised at our public hearing, and this proves the value of a public hearing, about concern that by waiving all the requirements of that section, somebody who had a previously approved special permit for an ADU could expand it to their heart's content. We wanted to, we always talked about the intent being that it would be continue to conform with the special permit that they originally received, except for the requirement that it expired if ownership changed hands. So I hope everybody got to see that. It's that adding the clause at the end, provided that the dimensions of the additional dwelling unit conform to the dimensional requirements in the recorded special permit. So let's first check. Is anybody have any thoughts or concerns about this language, or are they in favor of adding this clarification? I will take silence as being, or Kristen?
Yep, no, I'm in favor. I'm glad that we're capturing something about retaining the size limitation. Just to make sure we haven't further convoluted the statement for the warrant.
For the warrant, yeah. I thought the statement on this was pretty straightforward. It unfortunately, yeah, we are gonna have to amend it. Are we gonna, or will we be amending it at town, on the floor of town meeting?
So at the select board's meeting last night or the week before?
It was last night.
The town moderator is proposing that this be on the consent agenda.
With the change.
So the consent agenda will specifically state the amended motion.
Great.
Okay, well, that would be good.
That.
So then let us go ahead and take a vote. I'm gonna make a motion that we recommend for affirmative action Article 31 zoning bylaw amendment, section 42222, additional dwelling unit. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, I'll start here. Kristen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Kate,
Yes.
thanks, Kate. Linda
Yes,
and Andrew,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So that's unanimous. Great.
And thank you, by the way, for clarifying what we need, if we need a majority or a 2/3 vote. I think that's helpful to have kind of in this document.
You're welcome.
Our next item, I'm just realizing you're controlling the screen, not me. I've been like, why is my pad not working? Okay, is Article 32, the zoning bylaw amendment, section 3.3, formula business bylaw. We've also got some changes here, which were pointed out by, I think these changes were pointed out by the chair of the select board. I've read them. I think that they make the wording conform to the other sections of the statute or of the bylaw and make sense. This is what happens when you incrementally add things, is sometimes you change language in one place and you forget to update it to reflect the change language in another place. So that's what I view this. Does anybody have any concerns with the changes or suggestions? No.
I don't have any. I have a question about not the changes, but the entire thing.
Yes, please go ahead.
And it's a thought that I have not had before, and it's late. I know it's late to the party, but I guess I was wondering if we wanted to consider like allowing a formula business, even if we're at the max, by some special. If we thought that it, notwithstanding that it's a formula business, it would contribute to the qualities of the district.
That's a good question, Kate. And I will be honest that I will say that I have also been thinking something along similar lines. So little background, the select board also goes through this process of either voting to recommend for affirmative action or no action. Was looking at these articles last night, and this one they elected not to take a vote on last night, in part because they assumed that we would be recommending for affirmative action, but because there are some concerns that by extending, raised by one member of the board, there's one member of the board who's just generally opposed to the idea, and then one member of the board who previously was involved in the passage of the original formula business bylaw, that by extending it to another district, we are making it overall the town too restrictive, such that the formula business bylaw could be challenged as not creating sufficient opportunity for formula businesses in our town.
Oh, interesting.
Now, I think that there are counter arguments to that. While we're extending it to a new district, we're also extending effectively the number of formula businesses that are allowed. That the number of formula businesses that we're allowing for in the Thoreau Depot district is actually a very substantial portion of the total businesses, and that that our bylaw is squarely focused on use and not the sort of the impermissible, constitutionally troublesome issues of regulating based upon ownership. That said, some of the reading I've done does suggest that to the degree you have a hard limit, that might be more problematic. So that goes to that. It's a long way of saying, to your point, Kate, what if we had an ability to have a soft limit and have a special permit? Now, I would point out if you are a formula business coming in, you already need a special permit, right? Because essentially they need to go through a process. We looked at it. We just saw that for West Concord, where this board voted on the insurance agency that became part of a larger group. And so they became a formula business. I guess the question, the concern then becomes if it's a special permit, I think a lot of people would argue, well, we've heard, I will quote people that have said, if it's a special permit, then the planning board just rubber stamps
Right.
it.
Well, I don't know on what basis we would make that decision, if there's no objective criteria
Well, we would need to come up with objective criteria. Yeah.
as part of the bylaw, or
I think so.
I mean, I guess, well, Kate, go ahead.
So I would like to point out, even if a district gets to the maximum level, it doesn't mean a formula business can't come in. It means a formula business could change. There's 5 criteria.
Yeah.
That make up what is defined as a formula business, along with having more than 15 locations. So those criteria, the formula business can change and then not fall under the definition of a formula business and can go into that district.
What you're saying is you could get a Starbucks if they change the colors of their sign and their aprons and they serve pizza.
Correct.
Along the truck.
I have a question. Is West Concord at its limit?
Yes. No, West Concord, no. Concord Center is.
Okay, so it's worth mentioning too that the restaurant that's going into the 99 is the local, but they, through suggestions of some board, I'm not sure exactly which one, they're rebranded themselves and are not going in under their existing name. They're going in with the same menu and same format under a new name due to community pressure. So this is something that has a positive effect, I guess, in what we're looking at from, we're not curtailing formula businesses, but they're conforming to what the town would look for.
But I don't think the local has more than 15 locations, do they?
No, they have like 4, but they're still not going in as the local.
That just may be the West Concord Advisory Committee telling them, come on, differentiate yourself, which is
Could be.
perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
to say.
As
But
opposed to the situation.
It doesn't seem right that like a Starbucks could come in and just say like, well, we're not Starbucks, we're, Larbucks, and we would be like, okay, that doesn't
No,
make sense to me.
the definition of formula business,
Like,
it's a type of business activity that maintains 2 or more of the following standardized features: array of services and or merchandise or menu, trademark, logo, service mark or symbol, decor, architecture, layout or color scheme, uniforms, and sign. So they would have to go through and change quite a few things.
Yeah, the basic idea, Kate, is you don't want a business that feels like you're in anywhere USA. But if there is a business that manages to, even through a franchise model or something, leverage some larger purchasing power or something like that, but brings a uniquely tailored business that people go in and they don't feel like they're in Topeka, but that they feel like they're in West Concord, that's what we're going for here. We're not going for necessarily local ownership or a one location business. What we're going for is something that doesn't feel like everywhere else.
Okay, so like, for example, maybe we can just use Cafe Nero as an example, because I think Cafe Nero is an example of a formula business that adds a lot to Concord Center. For example, it's the only place that you can go and sit down, have a cup of coffee or do work. It's the only like that style of a cafe, and the people meet there, and I think it adds a lot to the district, to Concord Center, that wouldn't otherwise be there. So I guess I would love to preserve the option for and I think the way Cafe Nero is done is, I don't know that it's any different from any other Cafe Nero. I mean, I've been in a couple across the world. They kind of look the same, but I think it's fine. It looks nice. But so, I mean, if for example, would Cafe Nero, if we are at the max, be able to go into the Thoreau Depot district?
Not unless they changed those 5 elements so that 2 were not standardized. So the issue at this point is I completely understand. And part of this is kind of not knowing what's going to happen if the Thoreau Depot business amendment passes and how that's going to play out.
Right.
The timing issue at this point, which Kristen pointed out, is that you could not amend this article to that level and have it be within the scope of the article and the warrant. So the town moderator wouldn't allow that. And you would also have to come up with objective criteria so that the formula business bylaw would not be even more challenged legally, because somebody could come in and there's a formula business that we all feel would be great in the Throw Depot.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And then another formula business, let's say Walgreens, wanted to move right next to CVS. And somebody, well, we already have a CVS, we don't need another Walgreens. So I think that would be more legally challenged.
There's some issues there. And where we are in the process here is I think we've got essentially a fully baked article that we've looked at, we've considered. Kate, I think you're raising some good questions that maybe, future boards constituted in, future years could look at in terms of, do we need to make changes? This select board member has brought up the concern that maybe we're extending this to a new district and effectively covering most of the commercial areas in town. It is not all of the commercial areas, but it's the 3 commercial centers. And maybe there will be future consideration of changes that could be made, such as, a relief valve, for lack of a better term, like you're saying, a special permit process. But I think that needs a lot, just based upon the concerns that Elizabeth is raising, that when you do that, you start making it subjective and picking favorites potentially among maybe Cafe Nero we like, but we don't like a dollar store or something like that, right? So I think at this point in time, I'd like to ask, are we in favor of moving this, recommending this for affirmative action at this annual meeting and always these things can be changed. I think every year we're making tweaks here and there to different things.
I mean, it seems like one of the things that we hear the most from residents who come in and talk is about the desire to have those kind of different and unique to Concord, businesses. And so this has been one way we've been able to kind of preserve this in other business districts. So, and also without problems.
It definitely has its flaws, though. There's 10 real estate agents in a 1.5 block radius in Concord Center. No, there are 12 allowed in Concord Center. Yeah, 12 formula businesses.
And 10 are real estate agents.
And I think 10 are real estate agents, because.
But that's a big due to when we put the bylaw into effect, though, those businesses were already there.
No, local businesses have gone out of business, and the people that have, can afford those spaces have been real estate offices.
And you're saying that's precluding additional formula businesses from coming because we've approached our cap, but we couldn't dictate which businesses up to the cap.
Well,
Correct.
and also one of the complaints we hear is, why do we have so many darn real estate offices, right? And that's, I've heard that come from a realtor in town. Why do we have so many darn real estate offices? So maybe there could be a more finely tuned bylaw, or maybe commercial offices like that shouldn't be within the definition of the formula business.
Maybe professional offices shouldn't be allowed on the first floor in Concord Center, so similar to West Concord and West Concord Village.
Yeah. I mean, there's different ways of dealing with it. I was thinking of some of the examples of other formula business bylaws, some of which, interestingly enough, exempted from as formula businesses many professional offices and things like that. But that's not the direction we necessarily want to go. I would say, as a general comment, given our Thorough Business Depot proposed article, which if it does encourage people to redevelop, build any of the buildings, one of the things that happens, and this was sort of going to one of the things a select board member said last night, is when you redevelop property, almost by necessity, you are improving the quality of the building, and you're therefore increasing the rents. And the increased rents tend to be something that are attractive to formula businesses, because formula businesses tend to have a more ready access to capital. And so I think it's the timing of these two articles together in my mind, is important to move them both forward at the same time. So let me go, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we recommend for affirmative consideration by town meeting, the Article 32, the formula business bylaw. Are there any seconds for that?
I second.
Oh, sorry.
Kristen won. Kristen won
Well,
that.
I have done either.
Okay.
I was
Andrew, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Yes. Linda,
Yes.
Kate,
I'm a no now.
you're a no. Okay. Kristen,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So that is 4-1. Thank you all. And Kate, thanks for your good questions. I appreciate the thought given. Okay, that brings us to Article 33, the Thoreau Depot Business District, which the select board last night did vote in favor of affirmative action on.
3-1.
3-1. Yeah, there was one select board member missing and one voted against. Does anybody have any, we've talked about this one a lot. I think everybody's pretty familiar with it. And we've approved this and for publication as an article. So without any further, I'll make a motion that we recommend for affirmative action. Article 33, the zoning map and bylaw amendment for Thoreau Depot Business District. Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Andrew. All right. I'll start with you, Andrew. How do you vote?
I vote yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Kate,
No.
thank you. Kristen,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So another 4-1. Okay, that brings us to our first citizens petition, Article 35. And we saw Elizabeth's comments on this. This is the change for the requirement in a PRD to increase the requirement.
34? No.
Oh, did I skip 34?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, 34, citizens petition zoning map amendment, Residence A and Industrial Park B, zoning district boundary. This is to move the lot line to the district line to the lot line for the out on what's that road?
Virginia Road.
Virginia Road. Thank you. I think we heard from the petitioner at our hearing. I don't think anybody had any comments or concerns in my sense, but looking through my eyeglasses, from my point of view, I don't wear glasses, is that everybody thought this was a sensible approach. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, then I'll make a motion because I'm in favor of this, that we recommend for affirmative action, Article 34.
I'll second it again.
It's just harder from them.
Kristen seconded that one. Okay.
You gotta be here
Yeah.
to get the button.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes. Linda,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
great. Kristen,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Unanimously, we recommend Article 34.
Which I do believe the moderator is also considering putting that on the consent agenda.
Okay. Wow. Lucky guy. That requires a 2/3 vote. Okay. The next thing, Article 35, and our final article for consideration tonight is the citizens petition to change the requirements for PRD in terms of the percentage of the upland that needs to be preserved as open space. We've talked about this previously. Does anybody have any further comments? Want to sway our vote with your persuasive?
Or changes to the text.
Right. We haven't really been talking about that, but if people have changes to text here, this language is going, just so we're all aware, goes where?
I believe I will submit this tomorrow morning. I believe it will actually be potentially printed in the FinCom's booklet, but it will also be a handout at town meeting.
I don't think we have handouts.
You always have. a
No, but in
written
the
handout.
outdoor meetings, I just don't remember.
It's indoors. It's at the high school.
Oh,
I know.
those was not. Oh, yeah, in the indoor meetings, we have handouts.
Yes, this will be a handout.
Although I wouldn't mind not having handouts, it's so much paper, but that's not on our agenda tonight.
If it makes it into the FinCom booklet, I will ask the town moderator if we have to have additional printed handouts. Because it's like 400 to 700 copies.
Yeah. I know,
400 to
it's a lot.
700, yeah.
So this was the one I actually did have some recommended changes to the
Okay.
wording.
Okay,
One thing is I would recommend instead of saying, and let me pull up the actual, the working draft, because maybe I'll just do this as we go. It'll just help me.
well, maybe you should first discuss whether the board agrees to recommend no action.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's cart before the horse. Thanks, Elizabeth.
That's
Okay,
just my recommendation.
so Elizabeth provided her views that it would be a no action on this, out of a concern that it would make the feasibility of a PRD out of reach for many of the types of projects we see, and that the implication that the planning board recently considered the correct balance for open space. We took into account the other elements that play into the benefits that can come from a PRD, and we stuck to 35% for common space open area without this requirement for a particular percentage of upland.
Well, there already is a requirement for upland.
Right.
It's a 50%. So the proposed citizens petition would raise that to 75%.
That the open space set aside 75% of be in the upland?
Yes.
Right, okay, thank you for the clarification. Does anybody take issue with Elizabeth's recommendation, agree with it? Kate, you're shaking your head, you don't take issue, you do agree. Okay, great. Linda, same. I'm certainly on board with that.
And you said you might change the wording of it? Sorry.
I had some tweaks. I thought that there was I wanted a little bit of the language to be a little more businesslike, and I thought that the conclusion was a little strong. I might soften that a little bit. So let's take a vote. I would make a motion that we recommend no action on Article 35.
Wait, are you
Second.
gonna, sorry, are we gonna talk about the tweaks that you want to the language? You want to take out really great project and also the word impossible? Is that what?
Kate, you read my mind. Yeah. What I would suggest is that I like the thing, having all the PRD requirements working together in exchange for increased density is a challenge, but when accomplished, can allow for, I would say, a project that provides many community benefits or something like that, not just one. Yeah, it was really great. Sort of colloquial. And then I would also say, I agree that the planning board believes that this amendment makes achieving this balance more difficult in most cases, and developers are less likely to utilize a PRD. It would be less likely to utilize the PRD bylaw. In other words, I want to be less definitive, and maybe that's my lawyer showing.
Oh, you're gonna have to repeat that one.
Okay, so let's start with the first sentence. I would say that it says, together in exchange for increased density is a challenge, but when accomplished,
Wait, we're starting from where? In,
the first two sentences are fine. The one starting with having all the
Okay.
PRD requirements,
go ahead.
having all the PRD requirements working together in exchange for increased density is a challenge, but when accomplished, I would say make possible a project that provides many community benefits, not just one. All right. Man, I'm starting to sweat.
I think you're gonna get some help here.
I'm starting to sweat.
Okay. Makes possible.
Is it makes possible having, did we get the together, wait, working together in exchange is a challenge, but when accomplished,
I think all the PRD
Having stuff
requirements
makes
make
possible.
having
PRD requirements.
stuff you're right, okay, yes.
Okay, the
That's
planning
fine.
board believes
Achieving this balance, so I don't know where makes just came from there, achieving this balance would be more difficult in most cases.
you can tell I don't type on the keyboard.
Yeah, this could be, I think we need to, I guess, I think we should say the planning board believes that Article 35, right? Don't we sort of need to say that would make it more difficult? Would make achieving the balance. But Article 35 would make achieving this balance more difficult.
Or the changes proposed in Article 35, but yeah.
More, so then just remove the words after balance would be in most cases. And developers would be less likely to utilize. The PRD bylaw.
Period,
Yeah.
or take out regardless.
Oh, no, I think that's fine. I think that's,
Okay,
this will lead to standard subdivisions. I'm fine with the last sentence.
Okay.
Anybody else have any changes they want to see? I just thought it sounded.
Mhm.
I mean, I know you're right, Elizabeth. I just want to make sure that.
That's fine, right, because the petitioners put some thought into this, and I think we are aligned in terms of the intent, but we
Yeah.
think that this would actually not produce the
Yeah.
intent, and making that clear in the explanation.
Okay, so we've already voted. So
That's it.
we're good there? All right, then.
oh, did somebody? No.
Yeah, did we vote, or I think I
Oh, you haven't-
interrupted you.
you
I
haven't-
interrupted the vote by saying that we should change the
moved.
language first.
Okay, so then I would move that we recommend no action using the recommendation language that we just
Yes.
drafted. For
I'll
Article
second. Can I
35.
second this one?
Yes, thank you. Andrew, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Linda?
Yes is for a no vote.
Right. yes,
That
there
for
are
no
actions.
action.
Yeah, to clarify,
Yes
I'm
is for
voting
no
yes.
action.
for what was
Okay,
just-
then yes.
Thank you for clarifying. Kate, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Kristen?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so it's unanimous that we take no action. Or recommend no action. That brings us to the draft meeting minutes, which one of them, oh gosh, I'm just realizing we had two of them. I've only reviewed one, forgive me. That was for the 22nd would have been our public hearing.
Yes.
The 8th, I'm realizing I did not review. Take it on faith. If anybody, does anybody have any comments to the 8th? No?
Hold on, give Linda a minute.
Linda shook her head, no. What about to the comments to the public hearing on the 22nd? A minute to the public hearing. Okay. Makes you realize, reading those, it's hard to distill like a big level of substantive feedback we got into quick minutes, but they're intended to be summary. So with that, I'll make a motion that we approve as drafted the meeting minutes of March 8th, 2022 and March 22nd, 2022.
Second.
Thank you, Kate. All right, Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes,
Kate?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That brings us to planning board liaison town planner updates and then we'll get to general public comment. Yes. Elizabeth.
I have no updates right now.
Okay. Planning board liaison, one thing I would comment on is, I went to the select board hearing last night, which was a good thing because I ended up speaking about our articles, which I had no idea there's any expectation that I would be doing that. But it was also, they were considering some of the CPC articles. And one of the big things that there were a lot of people turning out for and continues to be a quite lively discussion is support for the Assabet Bluffs land acquisition and conservation. So if anybody's following along, it's very interesting. There has been, the CPC has proposed funding $1 million towards the purchase of the Assabet Bluffs land in West Concord, and an additional $500,000 would come from the town up through bonding, through town bonding. On top of that, I believe, two different land trusts have committed to fundraise, and they've already fundraised, I think they announced last night, $980-some thousand, largely raised from the West Concord neighborhood, I think, in terms of for that land, which is kind of blows my mind. And they only really went into the active fundraising stage within the last 2 weeks. One of the reasons it's remaining a hot issue because the CPC is very much in favor of it and voted for that $1 million. Obviously there's a lot of public support, is a request that's come up that the amount of affordable housing be changed from what was agreed to in a memorandum of understanding between the conservation trusts that are bringing that funding, that donated funding to the table, and the town. There was an agreement that 1 acre of land out of the, I think it's 6 acres altogether, would be set aside for affordable housing, and that they would build up to 5 units of affordable housing in it.
Town-owned affordable housing
It would be
or town purchased?
it would be, that is to be developed in terms of how that gets funded, how that gets built. But it would be affordable, capital A affordable, on the subsidized housing inventory list. There was originally a proposal that it would be a PRD that would go in there with like 11 houses, and presumably then the developer would fund 2 units of affordable housing. This, and what ended up happening was based upon neighborhood feedback, they reduced it, and it's not going to be a PRD, it's just going to be affordable housing, but then that needs to be funded one way or another.
Yeah.
So the development of that, the request is that be increased from 5 units to 7 units, which has created a lot of concern from the conservation interests that were at the table, as well as frankly the affordable housing folks who were part of that discussion. What was expressed last night is some of the affordable housing people, would love to see even more affordable housing, but they appreciate the fact that they've worked out a consensus with the neighborhood, with the conservation people that are bringing, it would appear likely well more than $1 million to the table to fund this purchase. So anyway, that's where that stands. If you're interested, follow along. Then I'm sure on one side or the other, people will be seeking support for position on that. That's everything from the CPC and the select board. If anybody does anybody else have anything from various? Yes, Kristen.
Not from a board, but we have a new member of the planning board that I think was appointed at the select board meeting. Nominated, thank you, at the recent meeting, and so we still need another one. And I would like to put out the plea to anyone who is living in multifamily housing, and I did send something to a resident at the Prescott to see if she could put on the resident portal to let them know that there's an opening. And then did you have?
And then Nathan sent me an email. He is talking to 3 different people, see about their interest on being on the board. So he's also actively.
I'm sure we're going to have someone. I just think it would be great to have somebody that is coming from multifamily housing or something, kind of more diverse would be helpful. So
Thank
it's
you.
just personal thing.
Yeah. That made me remember something. Somebody reached out to me today from, I believe, I snoozed the email, so I can't see it now. I don't know how to see a snoozed email. Oh, I click on the snooze button. From the HDC chair about establishing an architectural review board for Concord. For those of you that were paying attention to every discussion at our public, not forum, it was a public forum that this came up. Around the discussion of the Thoreau Depot, the suggestion was made that a town like Concord should have an architectural review board. I think it's a really great idea. I also think me picking up the discussion with the chair of the HDC at this juncture, when I am only on this board for a matter of weeks, it would make more sense for some folks that are going to stay on the board to be part of that discussion. And I was going to recommend Nate. Does anybody else? It's two members of the HDC. Would you, anybody else want me to pass on their name to be part of this discussion about setting up a architectural review board? See, everybody is saying, no, I'll let somebody else take it first. I really want to be part of that. Okay, well, then I'm going to recommend it to Nate. But at any rate, that idea, which was suggested to us, is coming to us from the HDC.
I like, my first reaction is like, if we have people who can form an architectural review board, like, can that person be on the planning board? Do you know what I mean? Like,
It's a great point, Kate.
But maybe it's just that it's less work. It's less of a commitment. So maybe you'd have more people stepping up to there. But anyway,
I can think of a prior member of the planning board that I think would have been much happier on an architectural review board.
fair enough. Yeah.
Than on dealing with our endless Tuesday night meetings.
Culverts, and yeah.
Yeah, talking about culverts. Okay, well, I'll recommend that I'll sit down with these folks, but together with Nate, I think. Anything else? All right, we are cooking. I'm going to go to general public comment. We have, let me go back. Let's see, we have a couple people online. And Sue, I know you've already said your piece, or in case if you have anything else.
Are we still running ahead? I'm not done with my sewing.
We're almost done here. Yeah, we're almost done. It's 8:31. Linda or Carol, any comments from you guys?
Linda Escobedo.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I too have heard this concept of an architectural review board, and actually heard the HDC talking to you as a board about this concept. And I would just say that probably this needs to be filtered through your department heads who are staffing your board, as well as the select board, because in fact, we are concerned about the number of committees and where we might pull some things together or not. So I think I hear you ready to go full speed ahead, and that may be fine. But I think there are some other considerations, and I would just recommend that you work with the department.
Absolutely. And Linda,
So that they can work with the town manager, and then there'll be a select board piece to this as well.
I think that's great input as usual, Linda. When I think it's a great idea, I guess I should say, I think the concept is a great idea, but I'm well aware of the fact that, what do we have, like 42 committees in Concord or something? It's an astounding number. Is it more than that? I just know, it's a lot, and that there's an issue with not only staffing them, but following them. I go on and I regularly try to look at minutes of different committees, and it's just astounding how many there are, or how many you can tell are limping along based upon the paucity of minutes that are published and things like that. So thank you for that input. And I will make that point to Mr. I think it's.
And thank you to all of you for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. With that, I think, seeing no other hands raised, we can adjourn. Did we actually, we continued a public hearing, and we continued both of them. Okay, so we will adjourn the meeting. Great.
Good
Thanks for
night.
joining us, guys.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Have a good evening. See you in 2 weeks, I think.